today's message is called The Genius of God. The Genius of God. You know, being fully alive in Christ is and should be the desire of all of us who follow Jesus. A life that is diminished or minimized is not for Jesus followers. I'm not referring to a self-help Western way of thinking, but I'm referring to one that is fully submitted to the creator of all knowledge, all revelation, and all mysteries, God himself. In Colossians chapter 1, verse 15 and 18, it says this: He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For by him all things were created that are in heaven and that are on earth, visible and invisible, whether throned or dominioned or principalities or powers. All things were created through him and for him. And he is before all things, and in him all things consist. And he is the head of the body, the church, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in all things he may have the preeminence. It's a pretty beefy passage there, and the way I interpret that and understand that is no matter how you slice anything in existence, Jesus is at the center and the core of it. It was created by him, for him, and through him. So when we talk about as a human, what's the standard of living fully alive or being fully alive? We need to look no further than Jesus himself. He is the gold standard anytime we talk about what it means to be fully human and fully alive. He is the standard for which everything is measured. His brilliance and intelligence surpassed all of the minds of his day combined. It confounded all the demonic forces and powers. Jesus was playing chess while they were playing checkers. It all started in the small town of Bethlehem, not far from where Jesus eventually died on the cross. He chose to enter into a board of 64 squares. He came into a world a king, and they thought he was a pawn. They didn't know he was the grandmaster, and no one could figure out his end game. They couldn't figure out his middle game or his beginning game. His end game was truly original, and no human mind could fathom it. He had counter moves, defense tactics, his ability to deflect, attack, and he handled every blitz that was thrown at him with ease and with focus. His offense, no one had seen anything like it. This is intelligence and genius on full display. Some of the great examples in the gospel that I love is one of them is the woman at the well. How he handled himself with this woman. First of all, he's not supposed to be interacting with the woman, so he's defying a cultural norm. But his intelligence and genius is on full display in how he chose to interact with a woman, and in the end, he basically reads her mail, and basically at the end of it, a whole village come to meet Jesus, simply because Jesus was on full display of his intelligence and his genius. One of my favorite stories in the Gospels is the time where the Pharisees and Sadducees brought the adulterous woman that was caught in the act of adultery, brought him to his feet while he's teaching in the temple. It's one of the most bizarre stories in the sense that a temple teaching is interrupted by a woman that was caught in the act of adultery. And according to the Mosaic law, anybody that committed adultery, you could stone them, man or the woman. And what's fascinating is in that story, only the woman was brought. And I always ask the question, where was the other half? Where was the man in the story? But nonetheless, it revealed a cultural perspective on women. So here Jesus, in the middle of his teaching moment, had this woman brought in that's committed an act of adultery, the very act. And they ask him a question, a very pointed theological question. And it says this: the law says, he who commits adultery should stone. And they're asking Jesus this question. So now he's in a conundrum. He has a dilemma he has to sort out. And if I say yes to that, she's going to be stoned. But if I protect her, then I'm going against the law. So Jesus, his full intelligence and genius is about to be displayed. And he does something I think is incredibly profound. And oftentimes we skip over this verse, and he says he knelt on the ground and drew on the ground. Who knew that a simple act like that would be literally full genius on display and high levels of intelligence? That simple act in of itself completely disrupted an entire institution of religion and law. They did not know what to do with that. And if you read the rest of the story, it said they continued to ask him the question, can we stone this woman? Can we stone this woman? And Jesus knew that he needed to disrupt the situation to get them to slow down the momentum of stoning this woman. So as he's drawing on the ground, they're getting more